It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring. Except for this hideous gnome! Now little Timmy was having the time of his life, just wondering, what could be under that tree? And as soon as he thought of it, he jumped off the bed in an instant, wanting to know what glory would befall to me. So little Timmy went out the front door. He looked to the left and to the right, but not a single player was in sight. The only thing he saw was his great glorious rat Francis along the road. "Hello, Francis, I love you, you horrible plague-infested rodent," he said. As he climbed closer and closer to the tree, he saw Santa's sleigh. Oh, glory be. Slower and closer, he began to climb to the first tree that caught his eye. Once he arrived at this glorious tree, he picked a beautiful present. However, it was not to be, for a new tree was the one with the correct gift. He picked up the gift in an instant, knowing that it was the gift he deserved. Opening the gift he found. Hey there, boys, girls, and squirrels. My name is Modstab, and welcome to a new series where we're going to be discussing some of the lore Warcraft has to offer. As the title suggests, we'll be looking into the Shadowlands. But before we continue, today's video is thanks to Mr. Gamer. Or whatever their name is today, they tend to change it a lot. It's kind of funny, and it's also great. But they suggested this in one of my live streams. And since we're on the topic, we do live stream every Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 5 Central Standard Time, right here on YouTube, and I'd love to have you guys join that, as you might be able to suggest some of the next content this channel has to offer. Now let's go ahead and get started. The Shadowlands are a very mysterious area with many different factions and aesthetics. This can be thanks to the fact that the Shadowlands seem to be a representation of Warcraft's version of the afterlife. At BlizzCon, this was confirmed by the staff, and that they promised we would see old characters from lore's past. Personally, I'm really excited to see Arthas and Uther, where they belong, how they ended up, and what role they have to play in the new Shadowlands expansion, as they're some of my favorite characters from the game. But to begin, it appears we'll be starting the journey at a place called Oribos. Think of this like the pearly gates of heaven, so to speak. This is the area where the Arbiter lives. The Arbiter is much like a judge and jury whom decides which of the 4 areas you belong. Her goal is to maintain balance whilst placing individuals where they truly belong based on their actions in life. Before we discuss each of the 4 areas we're going to be looking at in the new expansion, I think it's really important to answer the question, why are we going to the Shadowlands in the first place? Although that question can't be answered in full for now, we do know that Sylvanas, upon arriving to the Shadowlands after killing herself, which did take place after the events of Wrath of the Lich King, made a bargain with somebody known as the Jailer for them to mutually gain power, which did upset the balance the Arbiter had established. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed that Sylvanas wanted only power? She's never done this before. It's not like her character lines up. It always strives for power at any cost, at any measure. Who would have guessed? Sorry about that. Now, if you want me to make a video detailing the events that happened after the Wrath of the Lich King, let's try to get this video to 20 likes, as I think it'll be a really cool story for you guys. As previously stated, there are currently 4 areas we'll be exploring in the Shadowlands. Each of these areas symbolize personalities and traits of the people who may have ended up there. Let's begin with Bastion. This area is very regal and looks to have many aesthetics akin to Titan-based construction. There may be a lore tie-in, who knows? Something tells me we'll probably figure that out when we explore the expansion. Now, the covenant governing this area is known as a Kyrian, and from what we can tell, the Kyrian are a people of order, purpose, and servicehood, which I'm pretty sure is a word. Please don't fact check me. I don't want to sound stupid in my own lore video. Thank you. The souls in Bastion seek virtue and to shed the burdens of their past life. The kind of people you can expect to reside in Bastion are going to be noble, proud, and duty-bound. In the wording of D&D, some may call these lawful good. We can expect that we will see people like Uther and Thrall, as they were the kind to always serve others, and consistently were people-focused and peace-minded individuals. For those of you really into the whole tree-hugging thing, nature, well, you're in luck. Ardenwald, Ardenweld, Ardenweald. You know what? I'm not entirely sure, so we're going to call it Ardenwald from here on out. Ardenwald is also an area which can be explored in the new Shadowlands expansion. Ardenwald is a place much like a forest with the addition of magic. You can think of this as a mystical forest. I know what you're thinking. We've explored hundreds of magical, mystical forests of magicness in Warcraft before. Why is this one so different? It's just a magical, mystical forest of magicness! And to those people, I say, yeah, you're pretty much right. But it is a magical, mystical forest of magicness, and you should enjoy that because RPGs, baby, RPGs. The covenant governing Ardenwald is known as the Night Fae. The Night Fae appear to have close ties with a lot of the Druid and Night Elf culture, as they all tend to be very nature-focused. When looking at the design of this area, you may be thinking of the Emerald Dream, which is another iconic area in the lore of Warcraft, and they do have close ties. However, where they do differ is Ardenwald is a place of rest and rebirth, as opposed to life and regrowth. Think of the Emerald Dream as summer and Ardenwald as winter. Now, the characters we may see in this zone will likely include Cenarius and more neutral or passive characters. If you guys would like me to make a video on the Emerald Dream so you guys can get a little bit more detail on that, please let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you like long walks on the beach and sunshine, this one's for you, baby. It's a lovely little zone we like to call Maldraxxus. The covenant governing this area is called the Necrolords. They exemplify survival of the fittest. In a zone where much of the architecture mirrors that of the undead faction, you will find the military might of the Shadowlands. Now, if you're thinking, ha! We've caught you, Blizzard, you dirty scoundrels! All you're doing is reusing old models. There's actually an explanation for that. Arthas and Kael'thasad, while building their army, called upon the forces of Maldraxxus. They did so to bolster their ranks. Now, in turn, what that meant is that once building commenced, many of the features of Maldraxxus, naturally, also followed. Although you may land here because you sought power first and foremost, that doesn't mean you're entirely evil. A great example of this might be someone like Garrosh, for instance, who wanted power first and foremost. However, he was doing so because he thought he was doing it to preserve the faction of the Horde. If you, my friend, are an edgelord, just like yours truly, Revendreth may be just the right place for you. Revendreth is an area where the Ventir reside as the governing faction and is an edgelord's best friend. Vampires, Gothic architecture, and lots of dimly lit regions are what we can expect to be commonplace here. Revendreth is a place where the flawed and prideful reside. Many of them are here as they are, after death, atoning for many of their past sins. With such a dim and heavy zone, many of the characters we may see residing here have done their fair share of misdeeds, even if they thought otherwise. One such individual may be Kael'thas Sunstrider. I know I said we were only going to be talking about 4 separate areas in the new Shadowland expansion. However, I thought it'd be really wise to include an area called the Maw. Now, the Maw, according to Blizzard, is going to be the next max level zone. We don't have a whole lot of information on the design aesthetics of the area, but from what I can see, it looks like it's going to be taking inspiration from areas like Revendreth or Gilneas, as it does have a lot of Gothic architecture, or at least that's how it feels to me. Now, the reason I think this has a lot of potential and why I wanted to feature it is it has what I believe to be one of the coolest features ever brought to World of Warcraft. That feature is known as the Tower of the Damned. The reason it's so cool is it's going to be a roguelike dungeon, and what that means is no run should ever be the same. Everything is always randomly generated, from the path you have to take, to the minions you fight, to the bosses at the end of each area. And that does put a lot of spice and a lot of flavor into the end game, and I think it makes it a lot more replayable than a lot of the in-game features we currently have now. However, there's not a whole lot of information, so I don't want to ramble on that too much. But one can assume that it takes a lot of inspiration from the 4 zones that are also in the Shadowlands. With all that in mind, and all the lore set in stone according to Blizzard and its developers, I think it's time for a little bit of fanfiction. Now, we do know that Sylvanas made a deal with the jailer, but we don't know when. How cool would it be if our reasoning for going into the Shadowlands in the first place was to help restore balance once again? Maybe our mission will be to find souls that were put in the wrong zone in efforts for Sylvanas to gain her power, or even revenge. With Blizzard returning to moments from their past, we may even see a reliving of Wrath of the Lich King, in which we have to defeat and appoint a new jailer to restore balance to the Shadowlands, much like Bolvar taking the place of Arthas. However, that is just one man's theory. Thank you guys so much for joining me in the exploration of the Shadowlands. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment down below, as well as subscribe if you think I deserve it. And feel free to share it with your friends. But now it's time for me to shut my filthy little cake hole. Remember, I love you guys, and we will see you next time. Toodles!